Huddle Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
And away we do go with Purple Access, Zulgad, and Chip Scoggins, of course, from the Star Tribune. Read his stuff, Star Tribune, startribune.com. Or, heck, subscribe to the paper like I do, and you can read them in print. It's great. It's fantastic. Chipper, we have reached that very rare time of the calendar where there is no football information, there's no schedules to be released, there's no off-season camps to be run. It is what the players, I think, really do consider their off season, which is a month, which is not bad, but we need to get creative. And you had a great suggestion, which is to go in the archives and think of some things that might be fun to talk about. So what we're going to do, each of us independently today, is this. We are going to rank the 10 best players, the 10 best Vikings players that we have covered. So this does not go to being a fan. This is from the time that we started on the beat. I started in 2005 with Seifert. You started in 2008 with me. Is that correct? Okay. Yep. Our top 5 then players to cover. So this is just guys that we enjoyed covering. And then our favorite coaches to cover. And then the Vikings, the best coach. So you might not have liked him as much, but the best coach to cover. So let's start, and you have the honors. Let's start from 10 to 1. Let's start from 10 to 1. Best Vikings players that you have covered. And this is, I will say this, it's a hard list because there's more than 10.
Yeah, it's a hard list. And again, I started in 2008, so it goes back to then. And I'll preface this by saying I did not include Randy Moss 2.0 because he was here a month.
Me too.
I didn't cover Randy Moss 1.0. Obviously, he would have been, if not one, very high on the list. Obviously,
yes.
So I didn't include him, and it's hard when you're talking about best because I tend to weight quarterbacks because of how hard that position is. Is that harder than higher than a position, other positions? So, but here's how I ranked them starting 1. Adrian Peterson.
Okay.
I think Adrian, when he was in his MVP year and when he was at his height, was just breathtaking to watch carry the ball. 2 is difficult because he was only here 2 years, but the 2009 season, I can't get Brett Favre out of my mind. And that season and seeing him really could have been the MVP.
Yep.
I think he finished second right behind Manning. But you saw vintage Favre, and that was as good a quarterback play as you're going to see. So I have him 2. Number 3, I have Justin Jefferson. Even though it's early in his career still, I think what we're seeing, the really historic numbers that he's putting up and the way defenses have to defend him.
Yep.
I have him 3.
Yep.
Number 4, I have Steve Hutchinson. Hall of Fame guard.
Has to be on the list.
He changed really kind of that regime when they brought him in and really brought some toughness and just all world, offensive line play.
Yes.
5 and 6, I can flip flop and I'll go either way. It could be 5A, but I'll say Jared Allen, number 5. Obviously, one of the best pass rushers of his generation and his time in the NFL.
Changed the team.
Changed the team.
Like that trade changed the team. Like they could not find somebody to rush the quarterback successfully for years before that. And like that they gave up a ton in that trade, and it's probably one of the best trades the franchise has made.
Correct. And just not only the production, but just kind of the presence that he brought to them. Again, I could argue this one, Kevin Williams. I think he's worthy of Hall of Fame discussion. My colleague Mark Craig did a nice column after Jared got in, wondering why more people aren't talking about Kevin when you look at his stats compared to, obviously so much came early in his career, but was one of the best, 3-technique defensive linemen in that time frame.
Yes.
Number 7, Harrison Smith. Longevity, production, smarts, attitude, confidence, all those things. I think he's going to be. I think he's deserving being in the Hall of Fame discussion.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you think he makes it? I think he does, but
I think he does.
That's a hard committee to get your head around sometimes.
Yeah, you never know when they get inside that room, but I think he's worthy of it. I think he's a Hall of Fame player. Number 8, Percy Harvin. I still can remember the first practice watching Percy and thinking, holy cow, this is something different than what you normally see. I mean, he jumped off the field, right?
Yes.
When you saw the way he moved and ran and caught the ball and cut and came out of breaks. Percy was, when he had the ball in his hands, you expected something special to happen.
What would happen? 2 things off Percy at 9 or at 8 for you. Number 1, what would have happened if he had applied himself as a Viking? But number 2, what would happen if Percy Harvin came along now? Because I think about like the Vikings did. To Childress' credit, he used him in some creative ways. But like Percy Harvin now, to me, in today's game, would be an absolute nightmare. He was, but I mean, you think about how the game is played now and how the offensive minds have evolved.
Yeah, with the creativity of getting guys in space and creating matchups. I mean, I'd love to see if Kevin O'Connell had him and kind of using. But I just think he was incredibly, explosive and dynamic. Number 9, Antoine Winfield.
Yep.
I think just the best tackling corner probably at that time, or one of. Incredibly smart, incredibly tough, versatile, could play wherever you wanted to put him. He was a playmaker. I still remember the night in Philadelphia when Fred Puggich was the interim DC and sent him on like 25 blitzes. He just kept blitzing over and over. Yep. I remember the blocked field goal return for a touchdown in New Orleans. He just made big plays, much like his son does now in the NFL.
Yeah, who should?
And 10 I wrestled with. I kind of, there's so many guys. For me, those first 9 were pretty easy for me, whatever the order. But 10, I'm going with Danielle Hunter. I just think Danielle, the injuries were disruptive to his career, but he was on a sack pace that was pretty historic. The numbers he was putting up the first, whatever it was 4 years. Obviously, I wish injuries never would have happened to kind of see what his career would have done. But I just think watching him come off the edge with that power when he was really rolling with his early in his career, it was he was a difference maker. And again, I could argue a bunch of different guys in that spot. To me, the first 9, and some of this is selective because of, having covered as a beat writer is a little bit different, but you're right. There's a lot more than 10 that you could put on there.
Who got left on the cutting room floor?
There's a lot of guys I thought about. I thought Greenway had a great career. I thought E.J. Henderson was a great player. Who else did I consider? Adam Thielen, I thought, was a great player. So those are some of the names I had top of my head.
My first guy off. Well, I left Percy off because he was so great, but so briefly. And my other first guy off, Xavier Rhodes.
Yeah.
Who was a dominant, but not for a long time. But when he was good, he was one of the best cornerbacks, if not for a year, maybe the best. But he was certainly in that top upper echelon. And the Vikings, those guys are so hard to find.
Yeah, which they struggled to find them.
They're hard to find. Yeah. Like they're hard to identify, hard to find because, there's not, who's a perfect example? Jeff Okudah. He's the 3rd overall pick in the draft in 2020 by Detroit and completely flamed out, got hurt. So I give serious thought to Rhodes, but our lists are, I guess, not surprisingly, very, very close. So I put Antoine 10 and Danielle 9. Just flipped yours. Danielle, to me, though, the thing that impressed me so much about him was he was this guy that the Vikings took a 3rd-round flyer on. He was clearly a first-round talent. And, he was, so for as much as we rip the end of, and rightfully so, the Zimmer era, Danielle was in that sweet spot of when Mike was firing on all cylinders. And I'll never forget, I believe the story was, if it's to be believed, and I'm sure it is, the story was that Daniil, like in his rookie year, was on the scout team, and the Vikings were preparing to play, I forget who, and Daniil was playing the role on scout team of DeMarcus Ware and standing up. And he was like dominant in practice. And so Zim's like, what's going on with that? And they're like, well, he feels more comfortable standing up. To which Mike at the time, credit to him, said, why don't we have him stand up then? And like they did, and it started, and then Daniil developed himself into a great player. But I mean, to me, his ascension was so impressive, and it turned out that, you know, in retrospect, he probably should have been a top 10 pick.
Yeah, you'd have to go back to that draft and see who it was. But I mean, when you look at how he developed, and because you're right, he just, once he started to figure it out in Zim's, I mean, he just took off. And obviously, if you were building a rush in, that guy was built to play football. I mean, he was he's just enormous. There's not an ounce of body fat on him. So and explosive,
and Twan, I've got a 10 just because, I mean, he was so important. And he was also on the cutting edge, I think, of the start of the nickel corner being not just a real position, but like a Pro Bowl type of player.
A paid position.
Yes. Well, and a really important one. It felt, and this might be a completely incorrect assessment, but my memory, I guess, is this. It felt like for a long period of time, the nickel corner was sort of like a relief pitcher in baseball.
Yes.
And it's like, well, he's a failed outside corner, so we'll put him inside. And with Twan, it's like, oh my God, this guy's doing dominant. Like, for a little guy, he played like a linebacker.
Because he could tackle. You know, he was such a good tackler, such a technician. And he wasn't the biggest guy, but he had such just incredible technique and willingness to really be physical. So he got him inside close to the line, which, you know, suited his skill set.
And his size screamed he shouldn't be able to do anything he's doing.
Yeah.
Like he's getting killed. And he'd kill people. He'd get people.
He was such a fierce tackler. I mean, just he would chop down guys. Yeah.
Number 8, Harrison Smith, which you had at 7.
Yep.
Number 7, this is the only one where we have a difference. I put Stephon Diggs. And I put him above Thielen because I think he was more talented, and I know now he's a pain in the posterior, and he forced his way out. Now, he got you Justin Jefferson, so thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
But Stephon Diggs in his prime here, 5th-round pick, was the Minneapolis Miracle was sort of the end of the cherry on top of how meaningful this guy was for a period. Thielen was very, very good, but when I watched them side by side, I always thought if Thielen wasn't from here, Thielen would have been the 2, Diggs was the 1.
Yeah, and I probably overlooked Diggs because of the ending and a lot of the nonsense that went on. But yeah, I mean, obviously a great player. And if you took away all the other extracurricular stuff, it was he was sensational.
Yep. And then 6 through 1, we're basically in lockstep. We both had Kevin Williams at 6. I agree with you. He's a Hall of Fame player. Again, in his day, I don't know that we paid as much attention to 3-techs. Yeah. Like, we paid attention to him, but I don't know we paid as much. But football people paid attention. Teams feared him.
Yes. And then when you put Pat Williams beside him, it was just an unbelievable duo.
Phenomenal. 5, Steve Hutchinson, who you had at 4. I had Jared Allen at 4, but you could flip him again.
It's a coin flip,
There's no right and wrong. And then 3, 2, and 1, we are in lockstep. Jefferson, Favre, Peterson.
Yeah.
And this comes as a guy who saw the end of Peterson. And so, like, I ended up not really liking him as a person for a variety of reasons, but much like with Moss, you talk about a guy who stepped on the field and made a difference immediately. That was Peterson. And Jefferson has turned into, he might be the best receiver in the league right now, and he is definitely going to end his career as one of the best Vikings receivers of all time, which is impressive because consider the list.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, he's if we do this thing 5 years from now, the list may look, with Peterson, it's just defenses feared him, and they everything they did was geared to try to stop him, and was just so explosive. The combination of power and speed with him, and the things he did in terms of shedding tackles and carrying guys and breaking tackles in those runs. And did you agree with Favre? It's just, even though it was,
Yeah.
year 2 was terrible. Year 1 was so, I look at 09 as, again, of a team I've covered as my favorite team to cover.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the best team I've covered as a beat writer for sure. And it's a damn shame that they didn't win the Super Bowl that year, because I felt like they were the best team.
And that performance too. And I think what probably causes us to be biased a little bit towards 2009 Brett is we saw that team without Brett in training camp. And like, you think about where they went to, and they were really good. Like, that was a really talented team. But you think about where they went to, or where they might have gone to without Brett, and the valley's the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Like, the gap is the Grand Canyon. I mean, I don't think there's any way on God's green earth that they are even close to the conference title game if Brett doesn't come here. So like that probably sways me more towards him being 2 as well on our list.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to this one. Favorite players to cover. So like, this can be people that you just liked them, people who were good quotes. They didn't necessarily have to be the most talented.
Yeah, the best player.
That does help. But your favorite, your top 5, we'll keep this to 5 favorite players to cover.
Can I give you my honorable mention though?
Of course you can.
Because I this is so hard, because is it, do you factor in talent, interesting, great conversational? Because there are guys I just love talking to.
Yep.
In the locker room that I found interesting that weren't necessarily great players or they're role players. I mean, how do you exclude it? So I just, as we were waiting to come on here, I scribbled down some names. Here, I'll just run through them briefly. Heath Farwell, Colin Leffler, Marcus Sherrills, Hussein Abdullah, Pat Williams, Artis Hicks, Ryan Longwell, Harrison Phillips, Adam Thielen. Guys like that I find interesting, that enjoyable to talk to. Just, you can walk in the locker, and it's different, when you're the beat writer and you're in there all the time versus being a columnist or radio guy, that you're not there as much as we were on the beat. So some of these are guys that we got to know better, obviously, than we'd have later in our careers. But those guys I just always enjoyed talking to, right? But my top 5, and it's a combination of reasons. And I don't know if these are necessarily in order, Judd. I'll just go down as I listen. Harrison Smith, maybe it's the Tennessee thing. Vikings PR kind of makes fun of me because I'm always talking to Harrison Smith, but I just find him fascinating. I think obviously a great player.
And he has become far more introspective. And
100%. Yeah.
Like, I felt like as a kid he was, and at that time he's a college kid, but it felt like he was certainly. I mean, he still wants to be left alone to a certain degree, but when he does talk, he's very introspective about like life and his career. So
and we have some kind of odd connections through Tennessee, like a family friend is his family's priest. I mean, different things like that. So I just think he's a fascinating character.
Sure.
Number 2, it might surprise you, Kevin Williams. I love Kevin Williams. I love covering him.
Interesting.
Was it before the 09 or 010 season, Judd, where I went to Arkansas to visit his home in the offseason? And it was classic Kevin. I get down there and we pull up to his house, and he comes out and he's like, "What in the world would you want to come all the way to Arkansas to talk to me for?" And I was like, "Because you're a great player. You're one of the best players on this team in the league, and I don't know anything about you. You're quiet." And spent the day with him and his wife and kids there, and got to know him. And I mean, he showed me his karaoke room where he has this whole elaborate setup with karaoke. I was like, "What song do you sing?" He's like, "I love to sing Elvis." Like, this is kind of stuff
That's awesome. Yeah, that's
I know.
Great. Okay. Yeah.
But
that would sway me for life.
Yeah, and he obviously was not a guy who talked a lot, but he had so much. I don't know if there's a more respected guy on those 9, 10 teams, which had massive, big personalities, great players, Hall of Fame players, but they all looked up to Kevin. They called him Big Ticket, right?
Agreed.
And as he got older, I think he kind of took on that veteran wise words. When I talk, it means something. So I love covering him. I love covering Brett Favre. I found him fascinating. I found him complicated. I found him, his press conferences were a must see. He would drop the injury report. You'd ask him one question. He would give you the scouting report, the injury report, a history lesson, the game plan. I mean, it was unbelievable.
My favorite part about Favre was, and he's on my list as well. My favorite part about Brett, and I covered him 2 years with Packers and then 2 years here, but his press conference every Wednesday was going to give you a story. Like you never had to go into Wednesday. So essentially, Wednesday in the National Football League is the start of the cycle for game day. So it starts on Wednesday, Thursday access, but the quarterbacks ordinarily talk on Wednesday. And the funny thing about Favre was you never had to have a plan for your Thursday story. It was always going to be Brett. But what you did have to do to what you're saying is you had to, it was like a puzzle, and you had to go through his quotes and pick what the story was actually, because he would talk for 20 minutes. He would probably take 4 or 5 questions, you think?
Yeah.
But then it'd be this massive transcription, and it was up to you to figure out what the story was.
And you'd have stories for the rest of the week because of stuff that he had dropped in that 20 minutes.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right.
And then his history and just the way he played in that season, I just found him fascinating. Number 4, Vasante Shenko. I love covering Shank. I found him interesting, thoughtful, always had some great insight, funny, engaging, was a good player. So I really enjoyed covering him. And number 5, Ben Lieber.
Okay.
Obviously, a lot of people love Ben, and he's made a post-career life here, obviously, in media. Not only a good player, but just very, if you needed the state of the team, you went to Ben. I mean, he had, as got him in, I don't know if got him in trouble, but with the
Randy Moss, it got him in trouble.
Yeah.
Favre stuff got him in big trouble.
He understood the relationship with media and being kind of a conduit to fans, and very just smart, mature, all that stuff. So I have him on my list. So
you're 1 and 2. Harrison Smith and Kevin are really interesting because, like, most people would never put those guys on top of a list. But, in Kevin's case, too, you are so right. The immense respect he commanded by not commanding it. Like, he didn't do anything. I don't think he ever walked into that room a day in his life and said, I'm going to lead this team.
Nope.
But everybody looked at that guy and said, oh my God. And it also was at a time when I don't think that we just appreciated what he did.
Yeah.
Coaches did, players did, but because it's the interior of the defensive line, and he wasn't Aaron Donald.
No.
But he was damn good.
He was all pro. I mean, what did he make, like 3 in 5 years or something like that, or 4 maybe total? I mean, he, obviously didn't keep that pace, and how many people can, but I think when you look at, I think football coaches would probably say he was a Hall of Fame player when he played, if you asked them.
100%. Yes, if football coaches voted, if NFL people voted for the Hall of Fame, Kevin Williams is a slam dunk.
Yeah.
I think he's a slam dunk. Yeah. All right, my top 5 favorite players to cover is actually going to be sponsored. That's right, by Stoke Barbecue Pellets. Chip Scoggins, it's barbecue season, and I know you love to barbecue, so let me tell you about our friends at Stoked, a Minnesota-based and operated company. We're talking about 50-count fire starter buckets, 4-count fire starter bags, the barbecue caddy. May I suggest, Chip, you would love the barbecue caddy. Stoked solid oak firewood, perfect for your tabletop stove. Easy to use, 5-inch pieces will burn for 3+ hours. You can find Stoke products at Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Stores. Also check out StokeBBQ.com for their dealer locator to find all of the locations at which you can find the products. That's StokeBBQ.com. But start at Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Stores because, yes, it's getting warm, and yes, barbecue season is finally here. All right, I've got my top 5. Let's see. We definitely have some crossover again. My top 1 is Favre. I mean, and the interesting thing here too is in some cases, these are good people. Like I think on your list, Ben, good guy for sure. Harrison Smith strikes me. Don't know him well, as a decent guy. Brett Favre is not necessarily a good guy, but as far as covering him, as far as what he brought to the table to the media, as far as his ability to leave you thinking he wasn't that smart and he was actually brilliant. Like, that's my biggest takeaway from Brett. Like, the aw shucks Southerner, that dude was he was sharp.
When we talk about people having layers, there were a lot of layers with Brett Favre.
Yes. And I think he was happy to use the aw shucks, I'm from Mississippi, as a crutch. But, and I'm not saying that all of his smarts were used for good things. I think there was a lot of manipulation there as well. Yes. But like, if you want a reporter to be like, oh, okay, I like covering this guy, I'm with you. I think he was so interesting to cover. My second one is actually Antoine Winfield.
Yeah.
He would say what he thought.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily like, oh, he was not a go-to inflammatory guy, but if things weren't going well, or things were going well, he was thoughtful. And I always thought that his brain is one reason he was so good on the field. He's a very intelligent guy. He was not afraid to share the truth. I don't think he ever planned to torch the team or the coaches, but he also wasn't going to hide.
No, he didn't. Antoine, I could have had him on. He probably would have been 6 on my list because he doesn't believe in spin.
Correct.
You ask him a question, he's going to give you the honest answer, and whether it was a criticism of the team, the plan, himself, whatever, you knew you were getting a straight answer from Twan.
Mm-hmm. So here's my second one. You took Kevin Williams. I'm going to take Pat. I loved Pat. There wasn't
he's on my
opponent.
other list.
There is an opponent he wouldn't rip. He was, once you got to sort of know him a little bit, he was a complete character.
Playful.
And the what's the word I'm looking for here? Juxtaposition. The Kevin and Pat tandem, which was so good and so great against the run, but yet they were so different as people.
That's it. Yeah.
I always loved Pat.
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun.
It was the outspoken one, the quiet one, but they put them together and it was a dominant team. Yeah, he was fun. I never forget going in the locker room. I remember they'd given Favre the rocking chair, and it was in front of his locker, and it took about 1 day before Pat had that rocking chair.
Oh, yeah. He wanted that rocking chair.
Past chair. He sat in that chair. It was great.
And he was also, what I love too, because I'm just biased towards these people, I love the old school nose tackles.
I know, yeah.
I love them, and they're basically gone now. Like, Javon Hargrave's a big guy now, and it's like, dude, where's the gut?
What was the hot garbage? Is that what he would always?
Oh yeah, hot. Everyone was hot garbage. The Olin Kreutz. It started with Kreutz. It was the first time, and somebody said, "Hey Pat, you are going up against a very good Chicago center, Olin Kreutz. Your thoughts? Hot garbage. He's hot garbage." And then Kreutz shot back from Chicago. Of course, I called, or Kevin, or you called Brad Biggs. It's like, he just called Olin Kreutz hot garbage. So Biggs ran in the Bears locker room, because I love Brad, took it to Kreutz. Kreutz gave a very politically incorrect comment about Pat that we took back to Pat. But the funniest thing is, so that started this sort of war of words between the Bears and Vikings. Great fun. I don't know if it was a month later, 2 weeks later, I forget when, but they're about to play the Packers. So we asked Pat, what do you think of the Packers Center? Hot garbage. And it's like, oh God. Oh, you're going to say this about everybody.
Everybody was hot garbage.
Everybody was hot garbage, but he was just a true character. He played a position that's sort of, in that form, is sort of dead now. Just run stuffer. You were going to run right in. A tremendous player, too. Tremendously talented. So he is my third guy. My fourth guy is actually Matt Burke from back in the day.
Yeah.
Berkey was a good quote.
I actually consider Burke. I just didn't cover him enough.
Yeah, he was a good quote. It depended on his mood and the day. He always talked, though. He always talked. But again, you know, he gave SI one of the greatest quotes of all time during the Love Boat year. We put the fun and dysfunction, in which I think Burke was not playing. But anyway, I put him fourth on my list.
Yeah.
And then my fifth guy, I'm with you, Schenkel. Visante was always available. He was not afraid to give you a quote. He was an interesting dude. I don't know what his end game was to this day. And he started off here terrible. That first year here, he was like a non-factor.
Did he have a lot of drops, right?
He had a bunch of drops. He was a complete disaster. But then Favre liked him. And in 2009, he was a really good player here. So he's my fifth guy. Can I give you the guy that I've got, but I can't put on the list, because he
Yes.
was a great quote here, was Darren Sharper.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I considered Sharp for about half a second. And
Yeah, that's what I did.
It's
But I
going to
wrote
get
his name.
misconstrued. But in terms of covering him, if you ask the media members, we always went to Sharp. Now, we had no idea what was happening off the field,
Yeah.
and that's why I didn't want to go there. But in terms of, he was the guy you went to talk to.
And I don't know what happened, and I don't know if that stuff was going on then. I really don't know, because I covered him for 2 years with the Packers too. I don't know what was, but it's, yeah, that's the one that I've always now, I try to couch he's a good guy with, I think he's a good guy.
Well, I learned a lesson then, because you hear from people, friends or acquaintances, like, oh, is so and so a good guy? And after that I just said, you know what, he's nice to us, and that's the best you can. That's the
good
best
player
you can
to cover.
say, because we don't know. I mean, we're around athletes for small amount of time, 15 minutes at a time in locker room, half hour, whatever it is. So we don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sharper was a guy that we clearly all gravitated to for quotes, because he would give them.
Yeah. And what's scary is it's not scary. What's interesting is a very intelligent guy too. Like a very intelligent guy. So he is disqualified from my list.
Sure.
But would have easily been in the top 5 had he not done what he did, which is terrible stuff. Okay, next one for you, it's going to be 4. The best coaches. So the best as far as like football coaches.
Okay.
Your Vikings coaches ranked 1 to 4 for you.
Yeah, because I had 4 that I covered. I'll go O'Connell 1. I just think he's, when you factor in everything, not just X's and O's, but all the things, to me, he's the clear 1. I got Zim 2.
I do too.
Even though it ended poorly, I think he was a good coach for the time, what they needed.
Yes.
I thought the accountability, defensive mind. I loved, the frankness. You talk about not spin. You ask him a question. It may be short, may only be 2 words, but you knew how he felt. 3, I put Childress.
Yep.
I think obviously he had kind of blind spots in some areas, but I think in some ways he took a little too much criticism. I don't know. I don't think he was
not a great. Well, I thought it was. I forget if
I think he has strengths that maybe don't get acknowledged as much with all the other stuff that was going on.
Chipper, I forget if it was on our show with Mackie or where, and this was the perfect synopsis of Brad. Ryan Longwell said, in retrospect, he said he was a really good personnel guy, and he was. He was not a great game coach. I mean, that showed itself a few times, but that's a really good. That's correct. Like when he came in 2006 and decided clearly who to sign.
Yeah,
there's a lot of home runs there.
Well, and you look at those teams, the talent on. I mean, there's I agree with that. And then 4th, Leslie Frazier. We'll talk about our favorites. I love Leslie Frazier as a person. One of the best people I've ever covered. One of the nicest people I've ever covered. But if you ask me to rank the head coaches that I covered, he would be 4 on the list. On
Zimmer, I brought out my Kevin O'Connell red pen because I've said this to Phil before, and I will say it to you because I'm with you on Mike. I've got O'Connell, Zimmer, Childress, Tice because I covered him for a year in 2005, and then Les 5th. But on Zimmer, you need to take a red pen and draw a hard red line between 2017 and 18. Because Mike with Kirk Cousins as his quarterback, and look, the last playoff win came in 19. But Mike with Kirk as his quarterback, everything changed. From the time Mike started through the NFC Championship game, which I know they got drilled in the 17 season, Mike Zimmer was a hell of a coach.
Yeah. Yeah. I think not just defensively, I think players appreciated, sometimes stuff gets stale and gets, the culture, whatever Hendricks called that thing, the fear-based, whatever.
Fear-based culture, yeah.
But guys also like to know where they stand on things, and I think Zimmer did that. I thought he was a good head coach. I really did.
He was a shelf life guy too, right? Like, I mean,
that's it. I mean,
the actor wasn't going to work for 10 years.
No. And you know what? No matter what your personality, a lot of times that's the case with, every coach.
And coming out of Les, who was, I agree with you, the nicest guy on the face of the earth. I think that team did need a kick in the butt. The defense was terrible. He really improved it. So yeah, I'm with you. To me, Zimmer is a clear cut 2 there. All right, last thing, favorite coach to cover for your 4.
This is hard. I really like covering O'Connell. I think he's smart. I think he's got a good personality. I think he understands kind of the relationship that we have and what we're, our jobs. I'll put him 1.
Okay.
I'll put Frazier 2. I like I said, I don't know that I've met a nicer or more decent coach in any sport than Leslie Frazier. I just think he's, he's a guy you'd want to have as a friend because you feel like he'd have your back and would have good advice on stuff, if you're, so I don't know why I'm putting him 2 under O'Connell. Let's do 1 and 1A. Then I'd go, this one's tough because you know what? I sort of enjoyed in a weird way covering Chile.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yes, it could be difficult at times, but I'll go Zim 3. I'll go Zim 3, Chile 4.
Okay.
That's how I'll go. And I you know what? I'll say this. They all have different personalities. I've enjoyed all of them. There wasn't any of them. And I said, gosh, I just really don't like covering this guy. I found Childress to be enjoyable when we would talk to him away from cameras, away from off the record.
As a guy, yeah.
Zim, I had some great chats with him over the years. He always seemed like he would answer your questions and knew what you were doing. So, but I'll go KOC, Les, Zim, Childress.
I'm going, because I covered him for a year, Mike Tice 1. Ticey was a trip. You never knew what you were going to get. Candid as hell. Absolutely just, you never knew. Yeah. But I liked it. And he always gave you quotes. Deep down, I think he was a teddy bear. Like, I think he's a really nice guy. He wanted to be liked.
Yeah.
He went through hell. I mean, 2005 is still the most unfair thing I've seen in sports, which is to have the Love Boat happen and then to lay it all in the lap of the head coach to answer questions. Like, you got to get the lawyers. Like now now the coach would be off, he talks about football. The lawyers talk about the boat. You'll get statements. Like, literally, they would parade Mike up that, 2 weeks or I don't forget how long it lasted. And Mike was the spokesperson for the Love Boat, which was a bunch of BS. It was the Wolves' first year. My God, when the Love Boat took place, Chip, they didn't have a head of security. Like Tagliabue, I think it was, had to tell, he met with the Wolves in Chicago for that Bears game and had to tell them, you have to get a head of security. We will assign you one for a while. So Ticey's won, though, because he was just, like, the good and the bad was still fun with Mike Tice.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, too, there was a evening practice at the end of training camp when the team had returned to Winter Park, and it was for the sponsors. And who comes down those stairs from the coach's office with a big cooler of beer but Mike Tice?
That's great.
It was like the old days. Yeah. So Ticey's won. I put O'Connell 2. Although Kevin seems like a very nice guy. Things have changed so much though now. Like, so I struggle a little bit here because I don't want to just reward you for I think that you're nice. I was tempted to put Zim 2 because he was so damn candid, and you could criticize him for stuff he said, but he said it, like the Kellen Mond thing. Okay, I've seen him practice. I mean, that was
my answer. That was my question.
Wow, that was awesome. But and it was a brutal thing to say, but it's also like, oh my God, he just said that. This is great.
Yeah. You know where you stood. Yeah.
I once asked him at a training camp practice in the back half. I said, Mike, you seem angry. What's going on? Because his answers were so terse. And then, of course, or when the late Jeff Gladney was cut, still alive, by the Vikings, And he's like, I'm not talking about Gladney anymore. We're not talking about Gladney. And I said, I don't talk about Gladney, but I do want to talk about first round picks. Like he's a first round pick. And I know he was on the back end of the Jefferson pick, but I'm like, Mike, I mean, for a first round pick to wash out that quickly, it has to hurt. And he said something like, well, yeah, and the way Spielman treats him like gold. Great quote.
That's great.
It's a great quote. Yeah. So I put O'Connell second. I was tempted to put Zim second. I put Frazier fourth. I mean, my God, did he try hard?
Yeah,
he tried hard. He just wasn't. He wasn't a head coach. That game, I still think to this day, that game in Philadelphia got him the job. We got snowed in. We didn't get snowed in, but we got snowed in. Puckett comes out with that game plan. It goes crazy. And then I put Childress fifth just because it was so up and down.
Yeah.
When Brad was good, he was good. But when it was bad, it was
tough.
Things can go bad for O'Connell and it's still pretty corporate.
Yeah. Things
went bad for Brad and it got fairly hostile, which was sort of enjoyable in a sick way, but also was not good.
Yeah.
But Ticey was the one I got a year with.
I wish I could have covered him.
You would have loved him.
It would have been,
The only bad thing is when Mike got mad at you, he would give a scoop to a competitor. So if you ripped him, if you said something that he didn't like, better pick up the Pioneer Press. Back in the day, you had to go pick up the Pioneer Press. You couldn't go on TwinCities.com. Right. So, all right, Chip Scoggins.
This was fun, man.
Great stuff. Great suggestion. In fact, we'll come back with something else since it's probably going to be dead again next week, going back through our time covering the Vikings. This has been Purple Access.